All right, hi guys. Welcome. My name is Jen Bradshaw, and I'm VP of Product for Operationalizing.
I'm David Proven, Principal Architect with PGA TOUR Digital and Broadcast.
My name is Tanner McRae, and I'm a Generative AI Solutions Architect at AWS.
And we are here to talk to you today about golf and watching golf and how the PGA Tour with NLP Logics and AWS are actually making it far more interesting.
So to start off, to kind of introduce what I'm talking about today, TourCast was launched in 2003 as a way to get a deep immersive experience into golf. Our fans typically sit in two categories. We have kind of casual observers that come in, look at the leaderboard, drop out, and they have those that will spend 20, 30 minutes really getting a deep look into what has happened on the golf course. So TourCast is that experience where you can explore every shot across the course, 32,000 shots per event, 40 different data points per shot. That data is updated every 100 milliseconds. There's a lot of data in that experience. It's really designed for that extra layer of really understanding what happened on the course that day for your player, for your group.
So we knew that this was an enhancement to the fan experience, so they could really follow along. But the tour came to us and to AWS to say, we need to do better. Golf is not a linear sport to watch. It's not like you're sitting in a stadium watching football or soccer. It's not something that you can absolutely keep your eye on all of your favorite players. The field of play is not sitting directly in front of you at all times. So we needed to make it better. And what did we do, David?
So we're going to jump to the end of the story and then spend the rest of the time kind of walking you through how we got there. So this is the TourCast experience you see again, but in the left-hand side on your screen is the beginning of this like narrative commentary. And it was really important to us that we didn't just want to tell you what happened. The really important thing is why it matters. The phrase that we ask in the office lot is, so what? This happened, what does that mean for me? What does that mean in the course? So the challenge for us really was building that experience in a way that worked for 32,000 shots a week with very little human involvement and to be accurate wherever we put it out.
Now, this sounds super easy to do, I'm sure you know, but some fun facts, and actually quite intimidating. Only 20% of these types of solutions ever see the light of day. And I'm sure you guys have experienced with your own endeavors with AI solutions that some of the common causes could simply be stakeholder misalignment. You guys are not in agreement with what good solutions and what improving fan engagement really means. It could be that simple. It could also mean that you're working in silos. You have different departments competing for their space or their piece of the pie, and you're not actually working together. So I think it's important to call out the collaboration that we had, and we truly have the mantra of data science is a team sport. We had the expertise from AWS who knew all of the tools in the tool chest that we would get to play with. We had the PGA Tour who know golf. While Operationalizing might have golf fans, we don't know golf and the business of golf the way that the PGA Tour does. And then you combine that together with NLP, who understands how to take all of this information, all of these tools, and get it to production. So we felt like we were moving down the right path.
Yeah, and I think it's a really interesting point to bring up is that all three of our companies have a culture of innovation. And we're always willing to try new things and experiment and move quickly, and it allowed us to get this out the door very quickly from POC to actually going to production.
Agree. Okay, so where did we actually start besides really liking each other? We sat in a room and actually pontificated, how do we improve fan engagement? I'm going to say a word right now that's going to make this man cringe. And one of the things that came out of this ideation session was a chatbot. David doesn't like that idea. And he made sure to tell us repeatedly. But what we understood was that if we went down the path of trying to create a chatbot, we were then asking for fans to go and retrieve information to make them have a more contextually relevant experience. Well, that's a little unfair when you consider the user experience. So David's point was we need to make sure we're pushing this information to the fans at the right time. That's when we started having some real conversations. You can't just go, okay, we think we have a great idea. You actually have to understand what is the data that you're working with. That's another reason why projects tend to fail to get off the ground, is because you really don't know the state of your data. What are you working with? So we spent a lot of time with David. We asked a lot of questions, and he gave us access to the data, and we understood all the different things and all of the bits of information that we actually had access to. So then what do? We had to then take that data and marry it with the PGA Tour's expertise of the game, golf, and the business of golf. And so it was really important for us to spend the time to talk about how do we make the golf context relevant for fans. So what we ended up doing was spend even more time in workshops talking about commentary. So to improve fan engagement and to push information, why not give the fans an experience of more robust and exhilarating commentary every single shot throughout an entire tournament? That sounds great. We have the data. We now understand what our end game is. But we couldn't stop there. We actually spent the time to workshop out about 35 different examples of what good commentary a fan would want to see throughout a tournament. Now, with that being said, that's only 35. David, how many shots exist during an entire tournament?
So as we said earlier, we capture 32,000 shots on a golf course. The shotling team that go week to week to week, they will capture all 32,000. They consider it a personal slight if they miss one of them. So they will capture all 32,000 from tee to green, all 18 holes, a field of 144. They've got 18 holes, 3 points of interest across those holes. A lot of that is now automated with a relaunch of our Shotling 2 system last year. But the data collection, I think, is a hidden secret of the PGA Tour for the pure amount of collection. With the Shotling 2 system, they dropped on the course this January. They're gathering 10 times more data than they gathered with the previous system. So we are definitely data rich. Our biggest challenge is making that data relevant to fans at the right point for them to gather it. That's the big problem.
Well, and also, what he just said meant that we had to ensure that 32,000 times over the course of a 4-day tournament, we had to be 100% accurate in the commentary that we generated. That's pretty intimidating. So, Tanner came to the rescue.
Not quite. But one of the things that you mentioned, which I think is important to bring up, is that gold standard data set. Understanding really what good commentary looks like. And I think that's a lot of the key to a lot of the success that we saw is, how do you know that this is working? And the whole narrative of Amazon Bedrock from the beginning is that there's no one model that solves all of your use cases. There are certain models that are good at things, and there are certain models that are good at other things. So how do you validate that? And that's why this gold standard data set was so valuable. So we could actually pick and choose which models actually were going to work for us based off of the gold standard data set. And then Amazon Bedrock also has a lot of other useful features, like guardrails, for example. And you can kind of pick and choose like certain features within guardrails. You can build some custom, and what that ultimately let us do is create a real-time validation solution so that we know that the model is staying on brand, or that it's not hallucinating and saying incorrect factual statements. And the last thing that I want to bring up is that these models don't live in isolation. They live in a compound system. So there's a lot of operational overhead that you have to take into an account, which I think is a nice segue into the next slide for David to talk about some of the operational realities.
Yeah, so for us, the biggest challenge is how do we do this week in, week out, 37 tournaments on the PGA Tour. For those of you unaware, we have other tours, Korn Ferry Tour, PGA Tour Champions, PGA Tour Americas. So our biggest goal isn't to do it once, it's to do it 37 times a year and have it work with as few humans involved as possible. So the big challenge that we have seen with Gen AI is the idea is great, how do we actually do it? How do we operationalize that? So there's a couple things that we have there. The first thing is very early on, we realized that us owning the golf domain was super important. And there's a trend inside AI of it'll just work it out. The LLM will know. LLM don't know nothing unless you've told it what to know, is really the lesson we took out of that. So that idea of we could feed it very structured, accurate information into the LLM to generate the summary, that really helped with our accuracy first off. The second thing is Tanner mentioned that validation on every single shot gives us a score value. That score value will tell us we are really happy with this. This should go straight out. It publishes right out into the TourCast experience, no involvement. Second one is it's almost there, maybe generate it again. And those validations tend to be things like we've expected it to say the score is 7, the number 7, and it's generated the word 7. So it's right, but it's not in our writing style that we'd like it for. So we regenerate 99% of the time, LM on the second pass through fixes it. That passes through. For the 0.1 or 0.5% that hit the third level of no, it's still wrong, we don't have to show this commentary. We can omit the commentary for that one shot, goes into human review, that becomes part of our learning with our data science team, allows us to improve the model, iterate, and go through with that. So the PGA Tour is really good at making things work week in, week out, week in, week out. Partly due to some really committed individuals, but also we do this. This is our job, is to make stuff work. So that validation approach has been really helpful for us to launch with confidence. Our best example of this is we ran this at the Zozo tournament, which is in Japan. It's in completely the wrong time zone for me, being in Florida. We turned the system on and went to bed, and then woke up in the morning to everything worked great. So that kind of, for us, is the gold standard. It should run, and we should focus on the next thing. What is the next thing we need to build? This thing's running. What's next? So we're excited through 2025 to launch this, to see it go out to the general public, see what it can drive. We're hopeful it'll kind of give those really committed golf fans, oh, I didn't know that. That's interesting. That helps me understand this a bit better than I knew it before. I'm not expecting this isn't the first and 10 line in the NFL, right? That changed how the sport's consumed. But this definitely gives us that opportunity to keep you in TourCast, give it insight. The real secret magic that we're seeking for at Sunburn 25 is, can I read this to you in a way that makes it more compelling? So if you look at our web traffic on Thursdays and Fridays, it's pretty high because people in offices run sports websites while they're working. So the idea that TourCast, which if you watch golf is a shot, wait 5 minutes, it's a shot. The idea this thing can be on your headphones saying, hey, Scotty Scheffler just did a 300-yard drive. He's 14 out of 14 fairways in regulation. If he takes the next shot, he'll take a sole lead. Now I'm pulling you in during the day, disrupting your work, which I'm not worried about, but driving you back to our experience to kind of keep you engaged in our platform. So for us, this is really the first step.
Right.
We're not done. This is the first step to how we create those AI experiences which expand the fan experience and expand our opportunity to inform our audience and keep our audience engaged.
And I want to go back to something David mentioned. He said, having a human in the loop. And so while we are working on what the next cool thing is that we're going to build, we are constantly still monitoring this existing solution because changing conditions are a reality. And you have to be prepared to adapt your solutions. When we go back to that scary stat with only 20% of AI solutions actually getting delivered to production, most of the time it's because people are forgetting to put a human in the loop, to prepare for the fact that your data is going to change, your environment in which the model is living is going to change. So you have to make sure that you're constantly incorporating that feedback. Don't get sidetracked by the cool, shiny thing that might be that next project that you're going to do. You still have to make sure that this is running in parallel. So I would say, from each of us, our main takeaways, know that you don't have to sprint right out of the gate. You don't have to go pick up all of the fancy tools that are available. You need to know the problem that you are solving. Take the time to understand that you need to build with accuracy and build with a mentality that it's not just to develop a solution, it's to develop, implement, and maintain a solution.
Yeah, so my main takeaway, first, ROI is the first thing that you really need to focus on. But after you fix or you understand your ROI, how do you know that it's working? And starting with the validation is the really important part. Because you can build a POC and it works for a couple of use cases and great. But how do you know it's going to work at scale? How do you know it's going to work across a bunch of different test cases? And starting with that validation data set gives your leadership confidence to move forward. And I think that's the big lesson is we all kind of know that we should test things, but start with the test and really be diligent about doing that.
Yeah, so this project for us was a real eye-opener into what Gen AI is and where it works well, and more importantly, where it doesn't play well. I think if you'd asked us 12, 14 months ago, you have this like hype curve with any technology, right? Where it's the savior, it's going to save us, and then, oh God, it's awful. And then you kind of come out the other end and go, this is what we can actually do with it. And what's been really exciting working with NLP and AWS over the last 12 months is we've gone through that. LLMs know everything. Oh my God, they know nothing. Oh wait, we can make them useful. There's been that real journey for us as we've gone through it. I think we're placed now in a position where we have learned as a company what works well with Gen AI. We're excited to see the direction that people here in AWS and NLP are moving it. But really understanding that its value is not to replace but assist an experience has been key to us. We're working on other things as we move forward here. This idea that we can generate content we have 144 players. I can't write about all of them. What can we do to engage fans? We know our audience are player-centric. Those tools now with this project have helped us kind of lead down a path of this is where we can see return on value. To your point, we have 100 projects we want to do with AI. We have ranking systems now out of this that help us. Is it technically feasible? Do we see a return? Do we see fan value? Do we see operational savings that drive us to which one we select to move forward with? And the biggest one for us is don't be afraid to throw ideas away and come back to them later. So yes, right now, our chatbots are the bane of my existence. I never want to see one ever again. It doesn't mean that in 2 or 3 years' time, that shouldn't be something that we look at when it's the right point to do it. So for us, the main takeaway has been like, it's been a really solid learning experience that has also allowed us to deliver something new to the fans that we care about.
We do have time for questions. If you guys will notice, there are 2 microphones in the aisles. If you want to, 3. If you want to come up and ask a question, we will sit here awkwardly until someone does.